Now I know what you may be thinking. Cross, you think I'm gonna get on Destiny 2 to farm a bow? I know I sound like a used car salesman when it comes to these weapon reviews. I see your comments. Cross is always trying to sell us on these weapons. But what if I told you that there is something truly unique with this strand precision frame bow? And what is that uniqueness? Well, it's the only tiered bow that's strand. Matter of fact, the only other strand bow we have in the game is Vengeful Wisper, and that's from Warlord's Ruin. Now, this honestly shocked me considering just how many bows we have in the game. And Bungie's just now getting around to making another legendary strand bow. Hush Wisper is a Fest for the Lost 2025 drop. If you want to check out our guide, guys, we'll have it linked down below. Festival this year is pretty good. The bugs have been fixed, and there's some pretty good drops happening, including the SMG, which we recently reviewed. But today, though, I wanted us to focus in on Hushed Wisper. Let's start with its perks. In columns 3, we have Tear, Impulse Amplifier, Successful Warm-Up, Lone Wolf, Led from Light, Snapshot, and Slice. In columns 4, we have Archer's Gambit, Hatchling, Explosive Head, Collective Pugilism, Collective Action, Aggregate Charge, and Precision Instruments. Let's start back, though, with that third column. The perks that really interested me were these two strand-related perks. First being Tear, which states that Precision Final Blows causes nearby targets to become severed. Now, pretty straightforward perk. You get a precision kill, and this will then apply a Severing Burst. Now, this Severing Burst applies the Sever debuff to enemies within about a 7-meter radius. Now, there is a small internal cooldown, roughly 2 to 3 seconds. However, the enhanced version of this does decrease that cooldown. And again, to get the enhanced version of these traits, you'll need higher tier versions of this weapon, really just tier 2 or higher. Now, the other strand perk in this column, though, that also takes advantage of Sever is Slice. The perk reads that casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever targets on hit for a brief duration, up to a maximum number of targets. Now, how this perk works is once you've used your class ability, this will then allow your next 5 damage instances within 9 seconds of each to inflict Sever. And hitting a non-severed enemy also refreshes the buff duration. Now, both these perks achieve a similar goal of applying Sever to enemies, which let me just say, guys, you might not appreciate that much in like easier level content or ad level content, but at higher deltas, Sever is so nice. It's a great debuff that reduces an affected enemy's outgoing damage by 40%. It's incredibly nice during contest versions of raids and dungeons. Now, if I had to choose between one of those perks to really dip into the synergy, I'd have to say Tear is the best. You're able to immediately get a wide range of Sever application just by landing a precision kill, which is very easy to do with a bow. It's not that Slice isn't good for dealing with single targets, it's just not the way I want to use a bow. Now, in terms of other column 3 perks, you've also got Led from Light, where picking up an orb of power causes your next final blow with this weapon to grant bonus special ammo meter progress. Now, we talked about this perk on the SMG. Essentially, for any orb that you pick up, this can stack up to 6 times, and that's with the enhanced version. But on Hush Wisper specifically, it takes 10 kills at base to generate 1 special ammo brick. But then with 6 stacks of Led from Light, it takes 8 kills. Very similar to the SMG, it only reduces the kills needed by 2, which was okay, especially if you were doing an attrition orb build on the SMG. Here, though, I don't know if I really think it's worth using. Lastly, though, for columns 3, we've got our old reliable Successful Warm-Up, where each final blow increases charge and draw speed. Essentially, when you get a weapon kill, this is going to decrease your draw time by 37.5% for 6 seconds, with additional kills extending the buff duration by 5 seconds, up to a max of 20 seconds total. The only downside to Successful Warm-Up is that it does require a final blow in order to proc this, where something like Impulse Amplifier, although it doesn't affect draw time, does increase projectile velocity and increases reload speed. And that reload speed means you can knock an arrow in faster, thus speeding up that DPS. Now, neither Impulse Amplifier or Successful Warm-Up are bad perks. They're just not necessarily unique, and at this point in the game, I'm looking for unique combinations, which takes us to our 4th column. I'm going to start breaking down a few newer perks, just in case you haven't seen them. First, we have Aggregate Charge. This perk reads that this weapon deals more damage for each elemental debuff applied to the targets. Now, this is something similar to, say, Elemental Honing, except it uses debuffs instead of a different elemental damage. Now, each unique debuff that is applied grants us 10% increased damage, or for the enhanced version, 11%. Now, this will max out at 3 unique debuffs for a total of 33% increase in damage. Now, from what we can tell during the testing, this seems to last for as long as the debuffs do. And when one falls off, you'll lose a stack of the damage buff. It's a good perk, and especially synergizes well with things like Tear or even Slice. You may be thinking, but Cross, what about the other 2 debuffs? Wouldn't that be an issue? You gotta keep in mind, guys, there's a lot of things that qualify as debuffs. Between various builds, grenades, melees, fragment combinations, it's actually very easy to get those stack of debuffs going to proc that damage buff. And the beautiful thing is that if you have multiple weapons with Aggregate Charge, you're actually able to carry the damage buff over to those weapons. So for example, if you proc Slice with your bow here and apply Sever, and you're given a stack of Aggregate Charge, that buff will carry over from my bow to my shotgun with that perk. Now, the other new perk, though, in columns 4 is Collective Pugilism, which reads that collecting elemental pickups or destroying a strand tangle grants this weapon a stacking period of melee energy generation on hit. Now, how this perk works is when you grab a subclass pickup, each hit is going to grant increased melee ability energy for 8 seconds, with additional pickups increasing the duration by 8 seconds. Now, unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure how much increased energy this grants. You can kind of eyeball it here. You can see the side-by-side of the energy gains with and without the perk procs, which is pretty sizable chunks of energy with Collective Pugilism. It's an interesting perk, not really something I'm personally looking for on a bow, but we wanted to mention it nonetheless. Now, the final strand synergizing perk we have on this weapon is Hatchling, where precision final blows or rapidly defeating targets with this weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. A pretty straightforward perk here, guys. We've had it for a number of years. You either score a single precision kill or you land 3 rapid kills, which will spawn a threadling, with the enhanced version actually spawning an additional threadling occasionally. Not much to say, but it is a tried and true strand perk, which is giving you more subclass synergy, and you can always lean into things like Thread of Evolution, which allows our threadlings to move faster and also increases threadling damage by 33%. And we have fantastic artifact mods like Pack Tactics, where dealing damage with threadlings increases threadling damage, and at max stacks, threadlings can stun unstoppable champions. For a little recap on this artifact mod, guys, 1 stack of this grants us a 15% damage increase to our threadlings. 2 stacks is a 30% increase with the ability to stun unstops. It's a very strong pick on this bow, primarily for this season in the synergy with our artifact mods. Now, if you don't like any of these, you've got Explosive Head, which is normally a top tier perk on bows, as it essentially gives us a free damage buff. Again, normally it's about a 15% increase in damage to our body shot damage and roughly around 10% total increase to crit damage, along with the +5 to our accuracy stat when enhanced. However, when testing this in the shooting range, we only seem to be getting around a 5% increase. We even tried a different bow and got the same results. So honestly, guys, this perk may have inadvertently gotten nerfed at some point, as back in August when we reviewed Pre-Aztecross, it seemed to be working as intended. Now, I know some of you may be curious about the perk Precision Instruments. Dealing sustained damage increases precision damage. Essentially, with each hit, this perk is able to grant a stack of precision instruments, up to a max of 6 stacks. Now, this lasts for only 2.1 seconds on this bow. Additional hits refresh the buff duration. However, all stacks will be removed if you miss a shot, or of course you run out of time. You do get a nice buff at the top end. 6 stacks is roughly 30%. I don't really like this because of the time constraints. 2.1 seconds might be plenty long enough for you, but man, it ain't long enough for me. Now, the last perk I want to mention though is Archer's Gambit. Hipfire precision hits grant a massive draw speed bonus for a short duration. Essentially, when you land a hipfire precision hit, your bow is going to receive a 60% decrease in draw time, alongside increased reload speed with a reload duration multiplier. Now, this lasts for 4 seconds, with additional hipfire precision hits extending that buff duration by 4 seconds, up to a max of 8 seconds. It's a good perk, guys. I like it. I know it does require you to hipfire, but hell, man, this weapon is called Hush Wisper. Now, as far as the origin traits on this weapon, we have Search Party, which reads that this weapon grants faster aim down sight speed and movement speed while aiming down sights when no allies are near. It's pretty good, guys. Grants us a 10% decrease in ADS movement speed penalty and a 0.85 second ADS animation duration multiplier while no allies are within 15 meters. So not good with teammates. Primarily, though, a perk you would utilize inside of PvP. Our other origin trait, though, is something I'm a big fan of, and that's Wildcard. We love this on weapons like Pre-Aztecross. This reads that final blows of this weapon have a chance to create experimental submunitions at the target's locations. Essentially, Telesto bolts, and the amount of bolts you spawn are dependent on the enemy types that you kill. For instance, red bars can spawn 1, elites can spawn 3, boss and champions can spawn 7. Now, there's also about a 6-second cooldown before you can spawn more bolts after a kill, which takes us to the God Rolls. Fellas, I want a full Senate with strand synergy. I want that tear hatchling roll. Maybe a slice hatchling roll, but primarily tear and hatchling. Now listen, I'm crazy about threadlings and threadling builds and the artifact mods. But if you just want a full Senate with a good damage perk, I actually think Aggregate Charge is pretty nice. It's easy to get those stack of debuffs going, especially when utilized with tear. Outside of that, for like a fun one, tear plus Archer's Gambit. It's pretty good, man. It's fast, and you can be severing the entire battlefield. As far as bowstrings go, I think Elastic String is the best way to go. Compact Arrow Shaft is good for that reload and that handling buff. If you find that you miss your shots all the time, maybe you want to do straight fletching or fiberglass arrow to improve that accuracy. Now, in terms of the best synergy here, pre-Ash and Iron, I would have looked at you and told you Tempora Blast all day long. If you remember our bow review back then, we were laying waste to everything with Tempora Blast. It was so good on this bow. But Bungie pretty much killed this mod. It takes 7 bow hits at base to proc the blast, which deals 278 damage in this instance. Even with something like Aggregate Charge procced, it only takes 1 less shot, dealing 339 damage, which I personally just don't think it's worth the investment anymore. Most of you are probably going to look at enhanced reload or even enhanced draw time, which I don't blame you. If you're dealing with Cabal and Vex enemies though, Temporal Armaments is the way to go, guys. The enhanced version of this mod gives a 17% increase in damage and will net you the most benefits for Hush Whisper. Now this takes me to my artifact synergies that I love so much here. In columns 1, we of course have anti-barrier bow, which is great. It gives us the flat damage buff, and it allows us to pierce barrier champions. Columns 2, though, is where we have threadling proliferation, where dealing strand weapon damage has the chance to spawn a threadling, and defeating a strand debuff target increases this chance. Now, based on data, you need to deal somewhere around 33% of the enemy's health bar to spawn a threadling. And then if those threadlings deal enough damage to another target, that can then spawn another threadling. On top of that, guys, if you kill a strand debuff target, this will always spawn a threadling, which beautifully stacks with Hatchling. Yes, you can spawn 2 threadlings with each kill on a debuffed enemy. We also have pack tactics that we mentioned earlier, giving our threadlings a damage increase and the ability to stun unstoppable champions. For our bows, there's also semi-auto striker, which reads that if you have fewer than 2 stacks of armor charge, rapid precision shots with bows, snipers, and scouts generates an armor charge. Now for a bow, this is going to require 3 precision hits to grant an armor charge, which is pretty nice, guys. It's essentially just free armor charges. For strand synergy though, we also have threaded blasts, where destroying a tangle with strand damage increases the radius of the explosion and its damage. We also have elemental daze, where stunning a champion with an elemental weapon creates an elementally aligned explosion, applying a matching elemental debuff to them and nearby targets. So for instance, on this strand weapon, that's going to apply a severing explosion, which we can trigger from anti-barrier bow. Now the final column, we've got Tangle Web, and this is what really brings everything full circle. Creating a tangle by defeating a strand debuff target suspends nearby combatants. So in a lot of ways here, guys, you have the ability to have like a legendary version of Wishkeeper. You're able to easily debuff enemies from either tear or slice, and you've got the suspend here that you can pull off with the tangle creation. You've also got Argent Quiver, which states that reloading a bow consumes 1 stack of armor charge, granting increased damage and reload speed for your next 3 shots, which beautifully synergizes with our other artifact mod that essentially gives us free armor charge. Now, this is a nice buff, guys. We're talking 35% increase to our damage for Hush Whisper. Overall, I think that Hush Whisper is a fantastic weapon. Matter of fact, it's honestly a shame where Destiny is right now, because the synergy that we see between this bow and the artifact mods is something we would have dreamed of in previous seasons. This is a potent weapon, and it's got a green holofoil version, which beautifully matches that strand synergy. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.